Sam Grow is our guest on the Music Universe podcast with Buddy On and Matt Bailey.
Hey. I am so sorry I missed that one. Because from you telling it, Sam was like a really great guy, a wealth of knowledge. How'd it go?
Oh, it went really well. I mean, you never know what you're going to expect whenever you get on with these artists. And we've mentioned that several times. And we always just get blown away by how very respectful, very nice they are. And Sam and I got really in depth with the business side of things. I mean, he revealed stuff that people may not in the industry want out there, but he was really cool. I asked a couple questions and he just kind of went, and it was a really, really fun conversation. He's a great guy, and I look forward to seeing him out on the road at some point. Sam Grow, welcome to the Music Universe podcast. How are you doing back in the hollers there?
Good, man. How about you?
Not too bad. Where are you calling us from today?
So I'm at my house in Manchester, Tennessee. You're talking to me on my front porch because I tried to do over in my studio, and it's raining in the holler today, which affects the Wi-Fi service. So when you're out here in the cut, man, sometimes you got to make do with what you got.
I hear you, man. And your studio looked beautiful from what I could tell.
Thanks,
when
brother.
we first came on there. Let's get kind of down to before we get to the music. You said you kind of live out in the country. Were you affected by the recent floods of Tennessee?
Man, I was close. Luckily, I was not. I do live where Bonnaroo is, Manchester, Tennessee. That's where they have Bonnaroo. And fortunately for me and all my neighbors and friends, we didn't have any of the damage, but there was a lot of people that did, and my heart and prayers go out to them for sure.
Yeah, and there was a recent, just this past week as we're recording this, there was a Loretta Lynn and Friends flood relief benefits. How close are you to Waverly that was really heavily impacted?
Oh yeah, it's just right down 24 for me, so it's not too far. I'm pretty south of Nashville, and it's a pretty short ride. So to be in one of the fortunate spots to where it didn't directly affect my house and all that, I'm very, very blessed. And like I said, man, just heartbroken for the people that it did. Tennessee's gone through it, man. Like, even right before the pandemic, we had the tornado that came through and completely destroyed Cookeville and completely messed up downtown Nashville. And, we finally start to see the light of the end of coronavirus, and then we have flooding. So hoping for some grace here soon.
Yeah, I mean, you guys got hit with like a double punch right there within like a month apart.
Yeah, and I had some friends that moved to town just as that happened. So like they moved at the top of 2020, and then they had the tornado hit, and then right after tornado, coronavirus, which is just insane. For most people, I would have packed my bags and gone right back wherever I was from. But thankfully they stuck it out and stuck around, and they did get to see. We do come together as a state, and that is one benefit of being here in this state, is we do come together for our neighbors.
Yeah, I lived there over a decade ago for a couple of years and loved it, and then tried the LA scene for a while. But I love Tennessee. It's beautiful. It's great, and the people are just so warming.
Yeah, man. Have you gotten to come back at all since you've left?
I did come back. Actually, my 11-year-old's wanting to sing, so I met Matt, our co-host, at Nashville last November, and we covered the Oaks performing at Opryland there. We stayed there. I had worked there, but I never actually stayed there, and I loved it. It had changed so much, but once I set foot on outside, it felt like I never left.
Yeah. It has changed a ton. That's what I was going to ask, because 10 years ago, Nashville was a completely different town. We had a lot less tall buildings back then. Now, man, there's a bunch of hotels and apartments and everything. It's changed a ton.
Yeah, and I miss Music Row. I remember just driving at one spot and walking up and down and just looking at, what this could be or what that could be as far as publishing. It's just such a beautiful site that unfortunately seems like it's being done away with.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, when Virgin came in, they knocked down some of those legendary studios that we were so blessed to have. I'm hoping that it starts to slow up, but it doesn't look like it is. There's just so many people moving in to the city now. And honestly, that's why I moved out to Manchester about 2.5 years ago, just because I missed having land and space. And so now I'm out here in 17 acres on a cabin house, and I love it.
Nice. And is that where you do the majority of your recording? I know you've got some new music out. It's on all kinds of playlists. You've got 100,000 streams in 1 week for You Ain't Gone. I mean, what does that feel like?
Yeah, man, it was incredible. It's one of my goals to get that on Spotify. I'm a big Spotify user. I have been for a long time, and of course, I love all the DSPs. I'm that genre or era of listener. Radio wasn't exactly, where I found my music discovery. It was always through, Apple and Spotify and Pandora. So that's kind of what I always have chased my whole career. And that was one of my goals, was to get 100,000 streams on one platform. And we did with You Ain't Gone on Spotify, which is insane. And I've just been so blessed to have all the DSPs really support the project and music. And to answer your earlier question, I record and write pretty much all of my demos. I do all my demos of the records in that studio at my house. But when we do our final recordings, we go over to either Ocean Way or Keystone Studios in Nashville. And I'm produced by Colt Ford and Noah Gordon. And Billy Decker also is an engineer and mixer on there too. And they're just the dream team. So my music kind of goes through a few different studio waves to finally get out the music that we have, especially on this album. And just blessed sonically to have those guys working on my stuff, because what I do in my studio can't hold a candle to what they do in there. So I'm blessed.
Yeah, and Colt Ford, he's been around for a long time, a big name, and you're signed to his label as well. What's it like working with him, and how did that relationship come about, for those that aren't aware of that background?
Working with Colt is one of the best experiences. Everything that he is online, he is in person. And I tell people he is probably even more compassionate and just a big heart in person than you even get to see online. And how that all happened for me, man, was all in God's favor. When I first came to Nashville 7 years ago, I went on tour with Kelly Pickler for a couple months, and she had a guy selling merch for her. His name's Taylor Phillips. And me and Taylor became really good friends over that month of me being out on the road with Kelly. And Taylor the whole time was telling me, how you want to be a songwriter, and that's what he wanted to do. And we wrote a ton of songs together, stayed really close friends. We're still really close friends to this day. And then Taylor, he wrote a little song for Luke Combs called Hurricane. And then he wrote Good As You and Homesick for Kane Brown. And quickly became one of those songwriters that gets invited out on buses to write songs with artists. And he was out with Colt, and I was playing with Colt in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And Taylor looked at the day sheet on the bus and saw my name on the day sheet and started freaking out. And he called me and said, "Man, you're playing the show with Colt today." I was like, "Yeah." So he went up to the front of the bus and told Colt to let me come up on the bus and write songs with him that day and hang out. And I did. And Colt came in and watched the show, loved the show, invited me back to the bus after the show was over. And he knew my feelings on major labels here in town. It's not exactly the warm and fuzzies. I've never had the warm and fuzzies for any major labels ever. But he told me, he's like, I know how you feel and how you're, real antsy when it comes to a label deal. He goes, but just write down the terms that you want to happen. And he goes, and the only thing I want to change for you is to have more people hearing your music. So we did. We wrote up the deal, and he was a man of his word. He signed the deal that I wanted, and I'm very blessed and thankful, man, to be a part of his team. And now Colt, he produces my records, and that was a cool story too, just to gain my trust. He said, that first record, you can come in and make whatever you want. He goes, I won't even influence you in the slightest. So he wrote me a check and said, go make music, turn in 15 songs. I'll pick 12 of them and we'll put a record out. And luckily put that record out, did really well. And then he called me, he goes, I'd like to be a part of these songs now if you'll have me, so I've hopefully gained some of your trust on this. And fortunately, that happened, because then we put out Song About You. Him and Noah and Billy worked on Song About You for me, and that song changed my life.
Hearing that story, that's not something on a business side of things that you hear ever. And the fact that you basically got to say what your terms were, he agreed to them, he wrote you the check, he kept his distance, and now you're one of Billboard's 7 names to watch in country music.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. I think it's because Colt, he works so hard, genuinely as an independent artist, that he just understands. I mean, him and Brantley built Average Joe's together, Brantley Gilbert and Colt. So, just 2 artists created music along with Shannon Hutchins, who is an amazing producer. He was a big producer in the rap and pop world. So they're all musicians, and they created this label together. So I just think they have a different sensitivity to an artist than most of the major labels do, most of the suits, because a lot of those people in those head positions at those major labels, they couldn't play you a chord on a guitar if they wanted to. So it's different. And I'm just blessed to be on that team, and they've completely changed the game for me. They really did just put gas on the fire that I was already trying to burn,
Yeah, and much deserved. But do you feel like being on an independent label, even one like Average Joe's, it's kind of getting big there? Do you feel like it's a little harder than it might be with a major label?
It depends on what your goals are. I'll tell people all the time, if you want to be a quick slingshot run in the music industry, you probably should go and sign yourself a major deal, because it can happen a lot faster for you, and they'll throw a lot of money at you and do that quickly. But if you're looking to have a longevity career, I do suggest trying to do it yourself or sign into a independent like I have at Average Joe's. And it's something, my deal is structured to where I get paid off of my master. And a lot of my buddies who are on majors, that doesn't happen. They get paid 7% on their master against recoupable, which means every dollar that their label spends, they have to pay that dollar back, but they pay that dollar back off of their 7% that they make off of master. So that's why you see a lot of major label artists that really are struggling to survive, even if they have a #1 song on the radio and doing a bunch of big things and winning awards. They really are still struggling financially because their deals are just awful. And I'm blessed to not be in that position, and to have somebody like Colt, where he could very much, if you wanted to, especially 2 years ago, where I wasn't even fully educated on payouts of streaming and all that kind of stuff. 2 years ago, he could have tried to screw me over in a deal too, but he didn't. He educated me and showed me what those payouts are and how this stuff works and the percentage of a pie and how you get paid off of a master versus publishing. So it's really been my college and education for me too, being on the label as well. And I'm just blessed. I tell my friends all the time to do music. I'm like, if you want to try to make it nowadays, really, if you're trying to sign a deal, there's only 2 labels in town that I would send you to, and that's my label at Average Joe's and Big Loud. Those are the only 2 that I would really, be like, yes, you can do that.
Yeah, and when I was performing and playing and stuff in Nashville, I was told that at that time, so we're talking 2006 to 2008, it was almost guaranteed $1 million if your song, as a songwriter, hit #1. I can only imagine that has changed completely in the last decade plus.
Yeah, you do get the bonus if you get a #1 song at radio, which is why Nashville still works really hard to get those #1 songs, because they do pay. But the return is for an artist is pretty insane, because even a #1 song, they spend $1.2 million to market that one song to radio. So that automatically puts that artist $1.2 million in debt the minute that they're shipping that song out. And then if that song does go #1, a lot of that money is going to go right back to the label to recoup your 1.2, and the sales and results of what you're getting a #1 song for is insane. I mean, 3 years ago, if you had a #1 song on radio, you maybe sell 200,000 copies on like an iTunes or something like that, which the return is terrible when you're spending $1.2 million and you're only getting 200,000 in sales is not good.
Right.
You're really upside down. And now it's changed so much even in the iTunes world, because now iTunes isn't really a thing and it's Apple Music is really a thing. And streaming is kind of king on all of it. So yeah, it's changed drastically. I wish and hope that the payouts for songwriters get better on streaming. I know they're working really hard at doing it. I know Apple made some really big moves to change a lot of that stuff. And because I'd love to just be in a world where no matter where the streaming and, you know, songs are being played, that the songwriters are getting paid fairly for it.
Yeah. I mean, because without songs, you don't have singers, right?
Exactly. And without those hit songs, people aren't coming to the stands to watch you play. You need those songs or nobody wants to come and watch your show, you know?
Exactly. And speaking of songwriters, I mean, you've written what, all but one of the songs on your new album, This Town?
Yeah. Yeah. I try to be a part of my story as much as possible. It's got to be a song that I think is directly written for me if I'm going to cut it and I didn't write it. We're blessed to be in a genre that people can pick up pretty quick on how genuine you're being when you're singing a song. So I take that really, really seriously. And Song About You is a song that Taylor wanted me to sing from the minute he wrote it. And that's what he was thinking about when he was writing it. So when he called to play it for me, that's just what he envisioned is me cutting that song. And of course, the minute I heard it, it felt like me, and it felt like something I would have been in the room on doing. So that's why that one made the record. And that's why any of them that I don't write make the record.
What can they expect on the project besides Song About You?
Man, everything. No matter what you're looking for. If you're going through a breakup, I got songs for you. If you are falling in love, I got songs for you. If you're just trying to be out in your truck or out in your yard, starting a bonfire or doing yard work or whatever, I got songs for you. And even if you've recently lost someone in your family, I got songs for you. So it's an album that I think is just, that's why it's called This Town, is because I felt like it truly, all the songs embrace someone that would be coming out of a small town area and just what those songs would sound like and what those stories would be like. So yeah, if Song About You is one to have if you're trying to ride around with your girl and fall in love. But I mean, if y'all break up, I got plenty of those songs too, if you need those as well.
And that's what's great about country music. So touring, I guess you're eager, if you haven't already, to get back out there and play some of these songs.
Yeah. So 2020 was a weird year. I did stay home for a little while and did the whole quarantine thing. But man, I've been playing shows my whole life since I was 16, 17. I played 250 dates a year ever since. Wow. And so I went kind of crazy sitting at home for about, 50, 60 days. And after I finished those quarantine days, I looked up some of the strictest states. And they said even in the strictest ones, you could still have 10 people over at your house, social distance. So I called my manager and said, hey, man, I want to go and play in people's backyards. So in 2020, I did exactly that. I played 87 shows from California all the way back to the East Coast and did a tour called Backyards and Bonfires. And I loved every single second of it. And now 2021 has been such a hybrid year. It's like, one weekend I'm playing with the band on the bus, and the next weekend I'm playing an acoustic show with my guitar player at a venue. And then the next weekend I'm doing some more Backyards and Bonfires. So it's been a hybrid year, but I'm still just grateful to be out playing music for people.
Yeah, and I know a lot of artists have hit the road again, and many have been sidelined, some before they even got started, some as they've gotten started. Is that scary for you at all, knowing that you have shows booked and you just might have to randomly cancel because somebody in your crew could catch this thing?
Yeah, we've been, again, just super careful and super blessed in our scenarios. We try to pick every show, especially now, as smart as we can. That's why it is such a hybrid year. We knew that going into winter, there was probably going to be a lot of cancellations. It seems like the minute that you put any kind of band scenario on the stage, that's where everybody's ears kind of perk and they start throwing red flags, you know? So going into the winter, me and my manager just figured it would probably be best to try to stay as acoustic as possible. And that's what we did. And fortunately for us, it's worked out really well. We haven't had any, you know, major cancellations. There's been a few things where regulations were just so tough, and it was a difficult thing to try to ask people to do some of those regulations. So I did pull a couple shows for that, but other than that, it's been really good.
Yeah. And where can fans check out these tour dates? What's your website?
Yeah, so you go to officialsamgrow.com, and you can check me out on Instagram, Sam Grow Music, Facebook, Sam Grow Music, and all those dates and times and stuff. And also Bands in Town, which makes it super easy. You can get on Bands in Town. All those links and dates are listed right there.
And obviously you're on Spotify. You've got 350,000 monthly listeners right now. That's pretty impressive for an independent artist.
Yeah, man, we've made some climbs. I'm really excited about it, and it's built up even more since the record's come out. We're up over 400,000 now, and you know, that's the goal. You know, is just try to get as many people as you can to get ears onto your music. That's the first goal in anything before even shows or anything. Is just try to write the best music you can and get people to want to listen to it.
You know, and that's what I love. Nice guy like you deserves it all, and looking forward to hopefully seeing you out there on the road myself soon. And anything else you want to close with?
Man, no, just grateful to be on the podcast, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You wanting to take the time and have me be on your platform means a lot.
What a great interview. I know we were talking about it before, and you said he talked about like how an artist can become indebted to the label based on that label's investment in the artist. So that was really, really fascinating.
Yes, it was. I was really surprised at how deep he went with that, but I was glad he did, because I think part of these podcast episodes are also learning things that we don't even know.
Sure.
You know, on that side of things, because that's always interesting to know how the business side works. But, you know, you just got to get out there and work it. And a lot of these artists are doing that, you know, some more than others in different ways. And, you know, you just got to find a way to just connect with the audience. And I think Sam's got that down.
Thanks again to Sam Grow. For the Music Universe podcast, I'm Matt.
I'm Buddy. Thanks for listening or watching, and keep checking out themusicuniverse.com and hit that subscribe button.